Welcome everyone. I am Adam, and together with Nus, we will talk about the Chronosphere project, a data organization and distribution framework we have been developing. Despite the fact that it is only the two of us presenting, this work derives from a lot of ideas and discussions with people affiliated or associated with the Tertian Research Unit, which focuses on temperature-related mass extinctions. Originally, the project was supposed to be serving this group, but it took off after we had realized its potential use for the whole community. I hope that by the end of this presentation, I will have convinced you that our current ways of finding and using data have multiple deficiencies, and that our initiative can improve data distribution due to its structure and interface, which we will also demonstrate with a couple of quick examples. Why focus on data? Data are everywhere in environmental analyses, spanning all scales of space, from individuals through section level to global analyses. These data represent the elemental units of observation that we use to assess scientific hypotheses. We apply our methods of choice to the data items that eventually lead to results, which either tend to support or falsify our hypotheses. As our questions become more complicated, more and more data have to be incorporated into our workflow to produce results that can inform us about the validity of our hypotheses. For instance, this paper we published earlier about global biogeography is a particular example of this tendency. When I was working on this project, I drafted a chart of the analytical pipeline of the study to help me better see the flow of information. The only important thing I would like you to pay attention to are these items marked with red arrows. Every single one of them is a piece of data that had to be incorporated in the analysis, all of them having an effect on the final results and the conclusion of the study. Moreover, many data sources themselves have a tendency to change. For instance, you can use the paleobiology database to test hypotheses about the presence or absence of mass extinctions. The results that inform you about these are conditioned to a specific version of this database that aggregates more data over time. Using the same method on a different version of the data will lead to a different result that will affect the perceived support of your hypothesis. As these versions of data are independent of each other, the latest result has the highest precedence, which should be available on demand. This is a relatively simple case that relies on a single source, but implementing similar frameworks using multiple databases and automatization requires an increased efficiency of data flow. But how do we normally interact with the data? Most of us find interesting data in scientific articles that have supplements deposited on a data repository. Sometimes you can find these on websites of organizations and institutions. In other cases, they are standalone databases, but all of these routes will lead to a single or a couple of data files that you download to your computer and load into your preferred working or programming environment. However, when you only know about your hypotheses and not the data, this can be quite tricky, and you probably need some help. If you are lucky, you know the people that know just the data you need, or better, they have already had some experience with the data and can instruct you about how and what you should do. But if you are not this fortunate, then you might have to spend hours and hours of searching through the web until you find the files that should be suitable, which can be topped by more searching until you see the link with which you can download the files you want. This is a success on its own, but the challenge is not over yet. You have to store these data files on your computer, which either leads to a mess, or you have to invest a considerable amount of time in organizing your files, so you can find them when you actually want to use them in your analysis. Even then, you still have to import the data into your working environment. In many cases, this goes just fine, but in others, this can be as demanding as finding the data. Sometimes the importing is accompanied with weird feedback that point to irregularities in the data files. In other cases, importing goes fine, but the structure is just not compatible with other data, as in the case of this raster that spans 420 degrees longitude. Either case, you are left with either uncertainty about the success of import or more work to do before you even get to start with your actual analysis. To avoid these problems, it is preferable to work within the specific working environment, such as in R, which is the de facto standard in paleoenvironmental and ecological analyses. To get data from larger databases, you can use extension packages that connect to the application programming interface, or API, of these databases, that filter data and translate the database's internal structure to downloadable files that researchers interact with. APIs, however, require computational resources that are used by everyone that connect to the database, which makes them incredibly slow for comprehensive analysis in brainstorming sessions and classrooms or automatized analysis. In cases when larger sets of data are needed, by the time the data are gathered and downloaded, the good idea is probably gone and students are sound asleep. Nevertheless, this idea works remarkably in the case of static files, for instance, environmental layers used in ecological niche modeling. Such packages offer an incredibly dynamic workflow, allowing individual REST layers to be used within seconds. This framework, however, is constrained by the R packages themselves, because the data files can only be of a specific structure. The Chronosphere portal builds on a similar concept by reaching out to the basic data sources and caching frequently used data. These are archived in a compressed format, are incorporated into the repository and stored as static files, so users can find and reach them using keyword identifiers with which the data items can be downloaded fast and loaded directly into the R environment. The key to making this fetching mechanism independent of data structure is to bundle the data files with R code, which is used to import the downloaded data. This is a sample of the currently available data in this framework. Some are already getting updated on a regular basis. This initial set reflects our own research priorities, but it is getting continuously expanded to best fit the needs of the community. We would like you to make this tool as valuable to you as possible. Scanning this QR code will lead you to a form where you can suggest which databases you would like us to integrate first. The structure of the Chronosphere is organized to facilitate the quick finding of connected data archives. The most important identifier is the variable of the dataset. The variables are grouped into contextual units or databases. Data items that belong to the same variable have the same semantic and functional roles in the analytical pipeline and can have different resolutions or versions. Every item can be identified using these four keywords, allowing us to fit downloaded instructions into a single line of code. The primary way to access the integrated data is the Chronosphere R package, which includes functions to interact with and download items from the repository, as well as additional functionality that facilitates working with spatiotemporal data. These include the reconstruction of paleo coordinates using the gplates infrastructure and are array structures that help with storage and organization of vector and raster data. To get a glimpse of the simple workflow this R package offers, Nus will now give you a quick demonstration of its basic features.
You can install the Chronosphere package in R using the install packages function. After installing, you can then load it using the library function. To view the datasets available within Chronosphere, we can use the dataset function. This outputs a table in the form of a data frame. The first two columns are the dataset and variable names that you can use to access the data. The table also displays the default resolutions and versions available. Let's download a dataset and have a look. We will use the Paleo DEMs from Chris Cotes. The data is produced by the Paleo Map project. By specifying that in the datasets function, we can view all available resolutions and versions. The fetch function is then used to download the data. The DM data is in the form of a raster array with a layer for each time slice. The name of each layer corresponds to the age of the time slice in millions of years. To access a specific layer, we can subset the raster array using square brackets and specifying the age or ages. This outputs, in our case, a single raster layer. This can then be plotted using the default plotting function in R. Alternatively, you can use matplot, the inbuilt plotting function in Chronosphere, together with our customizable color palette. Now, let's have a look at coordinates reconstruction. We will track the positions of Erlangen, the location of our lab, and Montreal over the last 50 million years. We have Erlangen in red and Montreal in blue. The reconstruct functions takes the modern coordinates and uses the gplates API to reconstruct paleo coordinates based on the given age or ages. This feature is also available for coastlines and continental plates.
To demonstrate how the functionalities of the Chronosphere can be integrated in actual paleoecological analyses, we also provided two worked-out examples using paleobiology database data. The first example combines PBDB data with model outputs from the Bridge family of climate models, so we can infer about the different temperature preferences of zooxanthellate, symbiont hosting, and azooxanthellate, non-symbiont hosting corals in deep time. The second example demonstrates how saved states of the paleobiology database since 2019 can be analyzed to assess tendencies in the changing variables of diversity dynamics, such as the range through diversities of marine organisms shown here. Both of these can be found as repositories of the Chronosphere portal on GitHub. The infrastructure we developed is immensely expandable, and the data that can be incorporated is constrained only by storage space. Our intention is to increase the coverage of the Chronosphere in the near future and develop it into a larger organization. If the community will find it useful, interfaces for additional programming languages such as Python or MATLAB will be developed using the deposited data. Although the end of this journey is still far, the ideal development of the project would lead to an online computational platform that does not require data download. This can be developed into a framework allowing the deposition of live code, as well as the continuous updating and tracking of scientific results. If any part of this presentation caught your attention, or if you have questions, ask them now or sign up for a discussion session about the project. You can also look out for examples on our blog about paleoenvironmental analysis. It is our sincere hope that our work will benefit you, this wonderful community of data producers and analyzers. Give the package a try and enjoy the rest of GSA 2020.